Hi guys, and welcome to this second video in this series that I'm making on how to code a website. So if you didn't check out the first video, I'd recommend going back and watch this before you watch the second one, because we're going to pick up from where we left off in the last one. So here we got just a quick reminder, some of the things we looked at here. At the top line, we have our doc type or document type declaration, declaring to the browser what type of code this is, in this case HTML5. We looked at tags, we looked at elements, what an element is, what a tag is, elements within elements, nested like, some of the different tags and what they are. We're going to go through that more in this video, some of the different tags and what they are and what they do. And I'm just going to pull up here a working again in Visual Studio Code, which I will be for the duration of this video series. Basically, I use an extension within Visual Studio Code, and you can get if you are using VS Code, you click over on this icon here and look up for live server. Look up live server, and you see this one here by Ritwick Day. It's pretty popular. It's got over 6.5 million installs. Pretty highly rated, so it's very popular. But I'm just going to close this out. You would install it here, and it just kind of adds functionality to this program here for you. It's free as well. The extension is free as well. Basically what it does is that I'm just going to close this out as well by hitting Control B. And what this live server allows you to do, first of all, I just got to close my previous live server. It allows you to sort of see what your code looks like in an actual browser in real time. Like as soon as you save something in VS Code, you'll see it in the browser. So I'm actually going to do that now. I'm just going to half screen this one and bring up the, let's see what I got going here. Bring up this web page here. So this is where we left off. It doesn't look too fancy. We're going to add some things to this. In a later video, we're going to start styling it, make it look really good. But this is still a bit of the basics here. It's not going to be a long video series. I don't know exactly how many videos, but maybe 10, maybe 12 videos altogether. Hopefully it won't be too much of your time, but just want to try to touch on as much as I can. So here we have, again, we have a paragraph. So this is a paragraph element. Here's an image element, headings. So first thing I'd like to do is talk about headings here. So I'm going to write, this is my first heading here, because the H1 actually denotes the most important heading or the main title of your page. And how this live server extension works is you just go down here and click go live once it's installed, and it's going to open up a browser tab and give you updates as you code along, like I mentioned. So here it says this is my first heading, right? That's what I had updated this text to. So whatever text is in between these tags, that's what's going to display and render in the browser. And the H1 is the most important. It's like the highest level heading. So I'm just going to delete this ID for now. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I'm going to write, this is my second heading, save. See, as soon as I save it over here, it's going to populate in the browser. Now, this wouldn't normally happen. You normally have to save it, come over here, load it up, hit refresh, and then it would load. But with the live server, as soon as you save your code, it just automatically updates in the browser, which saves some time. Now there is also a shortcut in VS Code which allows you to copy down lines. So that is, you hold down Shift and Alt together and then hit the down arrow, which I'm just going to copy this down in that manner 6 times. Come over here and change these. It's another extension I have as well that changes the, if you change one, it'll change the other one on your tags. If you change the opening tag, it'll change the closing tag. You might not have this on yours if you are using VS Code. But again, there are extensions you can look for that will help you to do that if you want that. But again, so I'm just going to save this. It's going to populate over here again. You'll notice the difference in sizes. So the first heading is much larger than the second, which is larger than the third. And sorry, I didn't change these words yet, but this would be third. This would be fourth. And you can put any text you want here. This is just text that I'm putting in for demonstration purposes. But here we have the first an H1 heading, an H2 heading, an H3, an H4, an H5, and H6. And it's not just the size on the screen is why you would use this, but it's actually how the browser's when they crawl your website to see what content is relevant to their search algorithms and their search rankings and such. They look at your H1 and say, well, what is this website about? And then they might look at your H2 a little bit less, and then H3 a little bit less than that, as far as relevance goes for their crawlers, for their algorithms and their search rankings and such. So that's basically what that's about. The sizes you can always change using CSS. Again, we want to have a CSS file or more than one CSS file, one or more to style things, to change things like font size, font style, boldness, italics, and stuff like that. If it's for styling, you really want to leave it to CSS, and we'll get to that in a later video. But it's HTML. I just wanted to go over headings here. This is basically if you can envision a website or web page with various headings, subheadings, etc. So you'd use these H1, H2 through H6 for relevant importance, relevant importance. H1, H2 is very popular. H3 is used, somewhat often. 4, 5, and 6, not so much, like less and less. So it's hard. You wouldn't much see many H5s and H6s. You wouldn't use those so much, typically. So those are headings. Some other things we can look at here are lists. So this is a unordered list, denoted by the UL for unordered list. And the way the syntax is for these are very useful as well. But you would have a UL tag, opening tag, and a UL closing tag. And within that element, you would have list items denoted by LI tags. Oops, sorry about that. LI tags and closing LI tags. So you might have in here, say, list item 1. And then I'm actually just going to copy this down because it's quicker. Come over here and do like list item 2. List item 3. I'm going to save that. It's going to update. You'll notice that populates with these bullet points. I didn't actually code that in. That's just the default, how the browser renders this a list item default. And the default way it does that is with some indentation and a bullet point. But if you needed a list item on your website, that's how you would code that in HTML. These are very, very useful, as mentioned. It's unordered, so it's not really numbered. It's not necessarily something that has to go in a particular order. Like, for example, if you had a recipe, you might want to do that in an ordered list, which would look like this. You would still have list items, but instead of an UL for unordered list, it would just be OL. And if I go ahead and save that, you'll see that it's the default. The default way that the browser renders it is with 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. as you go. Now you can style these differently. You can style these bullet points to be, discs or circles or I think dashes, different things. You can even remove them altogether so that there's no marking there whatsoever. You can remove these 1, 2, 3s, or you can set them up to be letters, uppercase, lowercase, Roman numerals, etc., depending on your needs. Now I mentioned these unordered lists. They're very useful for different things. One thing is for like navigation menu. So if you can imagine a website at the top where you have like a menu, about services, contact, all that kind of stuff at the top of a website. That's actually built using one of these. You would just actually list out the items that you want, put links in them, which I'll get to in just a minute, and remove the formatting for these dots with your style sheet, with the CSS file that I'll get to. And then basically you style them again in such a way that they're in line with one another and there's some space between them. So instead of going a horizontal list, it would just be the same list item, but the way you would style it in CSS, they would be horizontally and spaced and appear horizontal in line and space between them, and the dots would be removed. And then you would add backgrounds and different fonts and different, when you hover over it, maybe it changes color. And when you click it, it goes somewhere, etc. But these are unordered lists is what you would use to make something like that. So that's handy. You got lists there. There are also description lists, which aren't used as often, but it's basically with a D, so a DL, and then you have a DT, and then within the For every DT, I believe you have a DD like that. You could have many DDs. But essentially what that is that, and I just want to double check that I'm actually coding that right, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's a description list, and then you have like a title of a description, and then the data that goes with that title or data. And then, so if you can think of like a dictionary, so you might have like a list of words, which would be the titles, and then for each one you would have one or more descriptions or data. And that's sort of a description list. So I won't go into that just yet. They're not used as much. You won't see those as much. Some other things here you could do. I did mention paragraphs, so I'll just go back to this paragraphs up here. You see this paragraph up here. I'm actually gonna show something else here where you can type in this word lorem and then put any number you want in, say lorem 20, and then hit tab. And this emmet here is actually the name of the program that does a lot of this shortcut stuff. So for example, in the first video, when we put in the exclamation mark and then just hit tab and it gave us that boilerplate, that outline, that's emmet working, and that comes built into VS Code, Visual Studio Code. But lorem, you just put in a number, lorem 20, tab, and it gives you these, I don't know if it's looks like Latin or something, I don't know. But it's like words that aren't actually, it's not like English sentences, but it fills up space on your page. That way it gives a developer, a designer, sort of something to look at. So when they're, I'm just going to save that. It's going to populate over here with the live server extension. And it just sort of gives like space on a page. So it's like fake text, just to sort of fill the page to see what that would look like on a page without actually putting content in yet. It's a sort of placeholder. So you can do lorem and then just put in whatever number of words you want. So say in this case, it doesn't have to be in a paragraph, it can be anywhere. Say we want lorem 40 here. Save. I'm sorry, lorem 40 tab. Save. Just gives you a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm going to copy this paragraph down. I'm going to show something here. Again, to copy the whole thing, I just, you can highlight it all, click copy and paste it like you would in a Word document. Or you can just do the shortcut of highlighting it all, holding down Shift and Alt together, and then the down arrow. And that just copies it down, which saves time as well. So here we see, like, if you put a paragraph in front of a paragraph, it's going to drop it to a new line and then give some space between. So that's what paragraphs do. That goes to the end of the line basically. And then if you have a new one, it would just space between, drop to a new line, put some space between. Now, you can get the same effect with what's called a line break, but line breaks are more like HTML is more supposed to be for semantics, for the structure of your site. So it's not really meant to make space between things, but a line break looks like this. And I think this program, when I save it, it's going to add this space slash before the closing angle bracket, and it does. Now you can write it either way. This is more, it is HTML. You'll see that in stricter versions that aren't as, it's not necessary for HTML5. You don't actually need that. You can just write that and it will do the same thing. But the way my program is set up, that when I save it, it automatically formats it that way. But a line break does sort of the same thing. So if I have some text, say I want a space between some words, like that. Now the reason why there's not a space between is because it actually drops it down to the line below. That's what that does. Now if I was to put another one here like that, there would be a space there because the first one drops it to the next one, right? So if I have, like, say, words, like that, you might think that some spaces would show up in between, but how the browser renders this in your code is like, it doesn't even count this stuff really. Like the white space between, it doesn't really take that into effect. So if I just to save this, for example, it's all going to show up on the same. This program formats it to kind of tidy it up. I got this extension called Prettier, which is handy because every time you save it kind of tidies up your code. But if you didn't have that running, and this just stayed like that saved, you'd still see this over here, words, space words, all in the same line. So whatever like amount of space you put in there, and yes, I have this extension running that automatically puts it back to look like that. But even if you didn't have that running and you just saved it and it stayed like this, it would still be in line over here because all this white space, the browser doesn't like render, doesn't pick it up. So what you use in that case would be like a line break. So if you were to have like words here, Lorem, whatever you want to put in there, you can have your line break, and then words, it's going to drop it to a new line because if you didn't have that there, words would just show up on the same line. Again, it formats it in my code to look like that, but if you were even just to save it with the space there and you didn't have that extension running, it would still show just in line like that. This white space doesn't get rendered. It won't show up. It won't put a space there. So you would use that line break BR tag like so. And you wouldn't necessarily put 2 there because that's sort of like you're trying to style it with HTML, which you're not really supposed to do. For best practices, you want to leave that to your CSS. So your CSS can put spaces between things, move things around, etc. But that's what a line break is. Line break's really, semantically speaking, it's sort of supposed to be like the same idea, the same topic. It's just like a new line, really. Then you have a horizontal rule, which is like a HR, which puts a line across the page by default. So just like these dots in the unordered list and these 1, 2, 3 styling in the ordered list are how the default way that the browser renders those, the unordered list and ordered list. The default way that the browser renders the horizontal rule element is with a straight line across the page. So you don't have to, you can style that differently. You can remove it altogether and still keep the HR, the horizontal rule. But what that's put in there for semantically, for the meaning of it, its purpose is to separate content that is sort of has a new topic. It's still in the same section, but it's like a new topic. Whereas line break, I believe, is, it's a new paragraph, or it's a new sentence, it's a new thought, but it's within the same sort of section, same subject material, if that makes sense. So that's those things. Next, I just want to look at actually links. Links is very important, of course, because websites really are links. You go there, you type it into a browser, your browser gets you there. But like many web pages, they got all kinds of different links on them. So what a link in code in HTML just looks like is an A tag. So you can type it out, but I'm just going to use this short emit functionality here and put A, then tab, and it gives me this A element. And notice it does have a closing tag with an attribute called href. And just within that, you would just put where it goes. So for example, I probably don't even need to put https:// in here. But this is the syntax of putting a link in your website or on your web page. Website just basically one or more web pages together. So here we go. So that's like kind of the location where it's going. And then if you save this, you're actually not going to see anything on the page. So there's nothing down below the list here. I can't scroll down any further. But what it is, right in the spot here between these angle brackets, that's where you would type in what they can click on. So whatever they can click on, that's the link. And then that link takes them to this destination that you defined as the value of the href attribute within this A element or link element. A stands for anchor, by the way, but that's it's basically a link. So you can say like, take me to Google, for example, and save it. Now it does appear here when I scroll down. And if I'm to click that, if I click that, it takes me to the Google page, right? So that's like the syntax of it. That's what that is. You can also do other things such as links within your own page. So for example, if I just put, it'll be inside of quotation marks again, but if I just actually, Yeah, it is within quotation marks. If I do like a hashtag about, hashtag is like an ID. So that'll take you to an ID on the page or on some page. And say, for example, that I wanted this unordered list to be that about section, which doesn't make so much sense. Maybe these list items are about me or about my company. So, for the example's sake. But like say you had like a section in your website in your HTML code that you wanted to be the about section. So you could put an ID in there, which is like an anchor. It's something that can be targeted. So if it, like for example, here we're targeting the about ID with this hash. So now when we click on this, it's going to take us to here. It's going to take us to that about. So let me just go back here. Should have saved. Let me just save it again. When I click here, it's not going to take me back because this is at the bottom of the screen and I can't scroll down any further. But if I just move this up to the top here, say, save, now this link is up here and it does say take me to Google. Let me change that to take me to about, save. And that's just for, for meaning. That doesn't change the functionality of it. It still would have taken me to the about section had I clicked it. But it just makes more sense now. But again, we have this value of a hash and then the name of the ID, which is going to take us down to this spot, wherever that ID is. And IDs, you want to have only one per page of each ID name. So you could have multiple IDs on a page, but you only want to have one ID that's called about. So you might have another ID called, whatever it is, services, etc. Whatever you want to put. You don't have to have IDs on everything on sections, but if you want to somehow get there or style it a certain way, that can be very, very useful and helpful. The only thing you would not do is put, say if you had these two, you would not want to put another one with about. You wouldn't want to do this. You wouldn't want to have that twice on your page because basically when we made this link, we're targeting the about, but if we have two of them, we're not really going to get to the right place. So that would be bad practice. But if you want multiple things to be the same, there are classes, and I'll get to that later. But here, let me just show you. If I click about, it's going to take me down the page a bit. If this about section was far, far, far down the page, it would take me far, far down the page, still to that section. So it's a way of getting around. It's a way of linking either within your page or to an external page like we looked at the Google one. So I'm just going to switch it back to the Google again. So again, I don't think I need the HTTPS. I can even just do google.com, I think. And I'm just going to switch this up for meaning's sake, not for functionality, but I'll save that. Now, this should take me to Google. Oh, cannot get. So I think I need the www, but I don't think I need the HTTPS in there. Oh, let me see. Save. Oh, you know what? I think I do need the HTTP. Let me see. Save. Okay, I guess I do need that. So you need this. You need this here, the HTTP or HTTPS, whichever it is, with the colon and a couple slashes. And then the www, whatever the address is. But that's how you would put a link in your within the document, and that's how you would link to an external website from your website. The only thing with this, though, too, is that if somebody just clicks on, like, say they're at your website and they want to check out your social media or some other external page, if they're on your website and you want them to stay there and they go to check out something, and now they're checking that out, and the previous browser tab is gone. Right, so they might not find their way back to your website, especially if you're trying to get them to, take some action there. If you want them on your website, if you want them to stay on your site. So a good way to, or the best way, or, this is how to do it, is to have the link actually open up in a new browser tab. You simply just add the attribute here of target, give it the value _blank, and that's it. And save it. And it looks the same, right? Because it's the same link. I didn't change the text that you have to click on. I didn't change the address you're going to. It's still going to take them to google.com. But with this target attribute and this underscore blank value for that attribute, it's going to actually open it up in a new browser, as so. And now they can easily just get back to my website. So they didn't lose their place. They have both now. If they're done here, they close that out. So sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't, depending on the circumstance. So that's a few of the things. A couple other things here. I won't make this video too long. It's comments. Comments are important. So in HTML, what a comment looks like is an opening angle bracket, an exclamation mark, 2 dashes, and then you can write whatever you want in there for comments. You might have space after those 2 dashes and a space before these 2 dashes. If you don't have this ending here, it's not going to work. Like, it's just going to comment everything until the end of a comment looks like that, basically. It's like 2 dashes and then a closing angle bracket or a greater than sign. So that's how you do that. Another way, a shortcut way in VS Code is just Control/. And it's going to, so if I didn't have anything there at all, and I just want Control/, it'll give me that, it'll give that for me. And then I can just type in, this is a comment. And what a comment is it doesn't, if I save this, you'll notice it doesn't show up anywhere on my web page because it's just a comment. It's only for, like, if you're viewing the code, if somebody else is viewing your code, if you want to have your code organized, it doesn't actually render in the browser. So a good thing for that is, like, if you're working on a team and somebody else is going through your code, or if you have to step away from your code, or if you're working on a project and you just want to take notes as to what's where, especially for sections, for different things. Like you might come up here, if you're studying, you might, what is this? Oh, this is paragraphs. But you could just as easily, if it was like a services section or an about section, you could say this was your about section. You could just write in about or about section. And then next time you go to work on your project, you'll be like, you can see, oh yeah, that is the about section. This is where I am. And especially if you have a big document, you can just do like you would in Microsoft Word or something, Control F, and just type in the word about. There might be in there a couple times or a few times, but it might be an easier way to find that particular section quickly. And lots of time saving things in here. I'm not sure what else I don't think there's too much else I want to go through in this video. It's been some length, but that's essentially what I want to look at. Again, this HTML is not pretty. It's just some text on a screen, really. You're not gonna. It's not. There's no colors. There's nothing centered. The font is all the same, pretty much. But again, CSS is where cascading style sheets is where that stuff's going to come in a later video. There's not too much more to look at HTML. There are a few important things. One is we're going to look at is contact forms, or just forms in general. Somebody would fill out. So say you want them to enter their name, their email, their phone number. We'll look at some of that stuff. Also tables, how to do tables with columns and rows and stuff like that. There's a few other things to look at, and then we'll get into the CSS. It'll make our website actually look like a professional website for a company, and I'll show how to do a navigation menu, how to do a main section, how to do different sections, and then I'll go into how to make it look good on all screen sizes, all your devices. So that'll be pretty much the extent of the course. It's not going to be very JavaScript oriented. It's mostly HTML and CSS. And I think that'd be it for this video. And again, the next video, we're going to look at some styling. We're going to make it look good. We're going to get some real actual photos and stuff in there. Just before I go, did also want to mention what an image element looks like. It is self-closing, so you'll notice it doesn't have a slash, and it doesn't have something like a /img at the end. So that's not part of an image tag. It closes itself. It doesn't need a closing tag. It has a src attribute, which is means source. So it's where that file or image file is located. If it's in the same folder as your HTML file, you would just type the image name and the extension, basically like that, the file name. There's other things. If it's like in a different folder, you might have to do some slashes and some dots at the beginning or something like that, but I can show you that later. But that's where the file name would go. And then alt is, it is optional, but it's highly recommended. And it's your alternate text. So if your image doesn't display, say you had a picture of, say, golf clubs there, and you just type in golf clubs here. If for some reason your image did not display, the words golf clubs would show in the place of the absent image. So that way, if the visitors somehow couldn't see the photo, they could still read the text. This is also useful for people, for accessibility, for those who are visually impaired, who read websites using a screen reader, who can't actually see the images, that they can actually hear golf clubs, so they know what's going on at that point in the page. It also, that's another thing that search engines look at, to see if you have alternate text for your images, and search engines reward that a bit. To what extent, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that they do. I know that they do. I just don't know to what extent, but it is highly recommended to have that alternate text in there for your images. So that's basically what I wanted to go through in this video. I hope you found that helpful. Again, we're going to get into making it look really good, and just a bit more on HTML. We'll get into the CSS. We'll actually build a professional looking website that you can use for your business or for your own personal photo gallery or whatever you want to use it for. If you notice up here in the address bar, this is not actually live on the internet. The reason we have this hash about here is because I actually clicked the about link when it was one. So tip you would see this basically is you have again, your title from the last video is up here in the browser tab. And this just means it's on your local machine, your local host. This is the IP address of a local host. And then the file name / a file name. But I could easily put this on the internet right now. And people could go and read this if they wanted to. It's not a good website. It's nothing useful other than, for educational purposes for this video. So I don't plan to put it up like this, but I can show at the end of the course, I can make a video as well on how, once your website is finished, how to put it up on the internet. So we'll look at that as well. So if you guys enjoyed it, I appreciate you watching. Hope you'll leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.